While there's a tendency to focalize on what happened in the West, 68 was also very important in other countries. For instance, 68 is also referred to even in Warsaw, in Prague, in Mexico. So it is really a period that we need to envisage in its international dimension. And if we envisage it in its international dimension, I think that of course, those struggles were very, very different according to the different contexts, but there is something that I see as being common. And I say that we could refer to this commonality by saying that it is characterize this as a democratic moment. Because what we witnessed worldwide was an explosion of a variety of antagonism, which, albeit, of course, in different ways, all express a demand for democracy. Those new demands, of course, are going to put into crisis both the social democratic and the communist Marxist model. And Nestor referred to the communist Marxist, but I mean, we must also realize that the very project of social democracy, also was put into question by the demand of that, were expressed at that time. Because all those struggles, in different ways, they are against bureaucracy, against statism, against traditional hierarchies, against the disciplinary society, if we want to use a term from Foucault, and its different apparatuses. So this is why I think we can really think of this as a democratic moment. And of course, left-wing thought was really not able to come to terms with those new antagonisms. It was not prepared to really understand this demand for democracy, because those new antagonisms did not fit within their traditional theoretical framework, which was dominated, in both versions, both social democratic and Marxist, by what we could call some kind of class reductionism and exclusive emphasis on question of worker struggle, even if it was not understood in the Marxist revolutionary way, and on the question of exploitation, struggle at the level of the economy. So a new paradigm was definitively needed. And it is within this framework that we began to do the theoretical reflection, which culminated later in the writing of Hegemony and Socialist Strategy. And I want to explain here in what way, our reflection in Hegemony and Socialist Strategy was linked to trying to come to terms with the novelty of this period. Because clearly, our aim in Hegemony and Socialist Strategy was to reformulate the socialist project in a way that will be able to take account of those new antagonisms which left-wing thought was unable to come to terms with. Well, I cannot, of course, here enter into a full presentation of the argument of the book, and Nestor, in fact, already referred to an important part, which was, in a sense, we could call that was our deconstruction of the Marxist tradition. But I want to stress a few main points which are particularly relevant for the present, the context of our discussion. I mean, clearly, and this both from a theoretical and a political point of view, because the book had a theoretical aim, which was to provide, the theoretical concept needed, and also to reformulate the project to propose some alternative. For instance, in fact, the full title was Hegemony and Socialist Strategy Towards a Radical Democratic Politics. Well, concerning the more theoretical aspect, clearly what we were trying to do there was a critique of class reductionism. I mean, that was, in our view, the main shortcoming of left-wing thought. And in order to do that, we use the problematic developed by the anti-essentialist critique, which was developed mainly by post-structuralism. Of course, I don't want to say here that only post-structuralism gives us instrument for an anti-essentialist critique. For instance, clearly we can find in Wittgenstein, in American pragmatism, in also many other, contemporary thought, a critique of essentialism, but our work was particularly influenced by Derrida, Foucault, Lacan, and what is referred to as post-structuralism, so mainly French thinkers. So this, thanks to the critique of essentialism made by this current, we were making a deconstruction of the class reductionism which was dominant in left-wing thought. And of course, one important element here was to put into question the very idea that they could be essential identities. I mean, in our book, we asserted that there are no essential identities. Any form of identity is the result of an identification. We also insisted that what we call reality is always something which is not given, in an essential way, but it is always the result of a discursive construction. So this is the element that came from post-structuralism, but this critique of post-structuralism was articulated with the influence of Gramsci, and this is why we insisted that this discursive construction of reality was always hegemonically structured. It corresponded to a specific configuration of power relation. And we asserted that every form of order is an hegemonic order. And that for that reason it necessarily excludes other possibilities. According to our approach, the approach that we defended in Hegemonic Socialist Strategy, society is the product of a series of practices whose aim is to establish order in a context of contingency. Those practices of articulation through which a given order is created and the meaning of social institution is fixed through nodal points is what we call hegemonic practices. So what is at a given moment accepted as the natural order jointly with the common sense, here I use common sense of course in the way in which Gramsci referred to this term, that accompanies this reality is always the result of sedimented hegemonic practices. That is never the manifestation of a deeper objectivity that will be exterior to the practice that bring it into being. So this is, to refer to the way in which we criticize class essentialism and show that in fact there are, many other form of subordination, as we call them. We could not reduce any form of identity to the class identity. From the more political point of view, we suggested to redefine the socialist project in terms of radical and plural democracy, so as to take account of those new antagonisms which had emerged in a multiplicity of social relations and could not be grasped through the approach based on class. So there was on one side trying to develop the theoretical approach to make us understand why all antagonism could not be reduced to class antagonism, that there was no essential identity that would be given by the location in the relation of production, and of course then politically the need to formulate a socialist project that will take account of those antagonisms that were not based on class. And here, and I think it's an important point that I will come back in a moment later because it differentiates our approach from other left-wing approach, we asserted the need to create a chain of equivalence among all those democratic demands, so as to transform those demands into claims that will challenge the existing hegemonic structure of power relation. It is clear, and Ernest already in fact make a reference to that when he was criticizing the analysis of Arte Negri, that the manifold of democratic demands, and that of course is something which really emerged clearly in the 60s,